Hey everybody, and Tony here with a review of Her, which was shown at the Sinistar movie theaters at Potsdamer Platz. The film was directed by Spike Jonze, and he also produced and wrote this film. His co-producers were Megan Ellison and Vincent Landé, and it stars Joaquin Phoenix, Amy Adams, Rooney Mara, Olivia Wilde, and Scarlett Johansson as the voice of Samantha. Now, I've watched Tony Watley II's, aka the Black Critic guy's, review of this movie, and he mentioned a lot of positive things of just how emotional it was and just how heartfelt this movie really was. And after watching this, I have to say, I pretty much agree with every single point that he made in his review, and I pretty much would like to add my own opinions about this movie. Now, story wise, this may not be the most groundbreaking story I've ever seen, but it has a lot of heart. And it is so down to earth. The writing is simply down to earth, even though it takes place in the near future. It's the writing that makes this film so down to earth. It may not be the most groundbreaking, but it's down to earth. It's so full of heart. At times, it can be sad, yet not melodramatic, but it's just so heartfelt. It tugs at your heartstrings that easily. Now, I like to make a comparison. Imagine if Chobits, mainly the concept of Chobits, in which a man falls in love with a machine, and then combine it with that of Koi Kaze's somber yet elegant and beautiful story minus the incest. Welcome to the NHK's down to earth yet very interesting characters, and of course the poignancy of Air and Clannad. You get this movie, and this is pretty much this movie in a nutshell. It's a combination of Chobits' concept, Welcome to the NHK's down-to-earth characters, Koi Kaze's melancholy and very heartfelt approach to love without the incest, and Clannad's and Air's poignancy. That's this movie. This basically tells the story of a writer by the name of Theodore who ended up divorced and is trying to find another woman he can start his life with happily. He has a machine known as an OS called Samantha, and he has a fantastic time with her. But he has a lot of complications in his life with his ex-wife and the various women that he meets. And he can't really separate himself from Samantha. What's he to do? Will he and Samantha live happily ever after or not? This is what fascinates me about this movie, and this is what makes this film so down to earth and so relatable. The characters definitely make this story happen very effectively. And it's a very somber tale. What more can you ask for? And it's no wonder why this film won Best Screenplay, Original Screenplay, because this was able to take risks. This is trying to be something that is unique and that has been never done before in Hollywood. Sure, it's been done in anime before and a lot of animated media, but with live action, it's almost quite impossible. But with this film, it just has so much heart and so much care and just a lot of emotion that I was practically crying my eyes out, though not too over the top, but I was pretty much almost about to cry just by watching all of those touching scenes because that's how much it touched me in the heart. Boy, that is just amazing of what I saw. And like I said, the writing is very solid and very down to earth. The cinematography is masterfully shot. I loved all of the locations that were shot, especially those of Shanghai and China. I almost thought that it was Japan, since, well, what more can you expect of a tale of a man who falls in love with a machine. You almost think that this might take place in Japan, and it almost felt like it. The subways and even the buildings themselves almost made me feel like I was in a flashier side of Tokyo. But just wow. And sure, there were times that the shaky cam movements kind of were a bit jarring, but other than that, I thought the shots were very solid and were actually very fluid all around. Now, the characters are the bread and butter of this film. Theodore is a very lonely, very shy, and a very troubled man. He was divorced, and now he's trying to find a lot more meaning in his life. He basically works in a letter writing company where he basically dictates to the computer of the words that he was going to say in the letters that he writes. He's also an author, so he pretty much leads a very difficult life. He's pretty much Hideki Morosua's shyness, Tatsuhiro Sato's screwed up nature, Kaoru Yamazaki's nerdy nature, and of course that of Tomoya's insecurity. You get Theodore in a nutshell. He's pretty much those four anime characters that I mentioned combined. Except, well, this is what happens when you have the concept of Chobits, Clannad, and Air, and make it for adults. You get this character in general. And he does feel like the characters that I mentioned. I've seen characters like him, and he basically radiates with such relatability and such a down to earth nature that I was pretty much rooting for him. I was even sympathizing with him because, let's face it, I'm only 21 going on 22, and I've never really had this problem with relationships. Sure, I've had crushes, as in many crushes, but a lot of them were not successful. Actually, none of them were. Sure, there would be times where I think to myself, maybe there might be one that would work, but that would take time. So, yes, Theodore is definitely relatable on so many levels, especially when it comes to the topic of love, true love in particular. Oh, yeah, and another character I'd like to mention that is quite similar to him is that of Koshiro Saiki from Koi Kaze. Now, these two are pretty similar in terms of how they feel about true love. Now, while their love interests are very different, there's no doubt that they both have the same problems, except Theodore is not all gruff like Koshiro. But they definitely have those problems. They're not so sure. They're quite insecure about what's going to happen to their future, especially if it's going to be with someone that they've actually spent a lot of time with. And yeah, both of them ended up being split up. Koshiro split up from his girlfriend, and here we have Theodore being split up by his wife, who they've been married for several years, as seen in the flashbacks, so I basically sympathize with him. So, yes, Theodore is definitely such a down to earth character. Samantha is another character I really, really love. Sure, you may not see her, but you can actually hear her because she is simply put a device, specifically an OS. Every line that she says, everything that she says, just makes her seem like a human being. She's not just some machine, but she definitely feels and talks like how a real human being would react to anybody. She definitely feels like you're talking to someone that probably can lend you an ear, or someone who can console you, someone who basically feels like your guardian angel one way or the other. And that's how I felt with Samantha. She was definitely such a down to earth character. Even though she can't be seen, her voice definitely radiates with such a down-to-earth nature. I know I've said down-to-earth so many times, but that's pretty much her in a nutshell. She is so down-to-earth. She's funny. She's sweet. She's incredibly witty. What more can you ask from such a wonderful person, or machine in this case, like Samantha? And then we have Theodore's ex-wife, Catherine. Now, she's also another down-to-earth character because she herself is a suffering wife, especially when she noticed that Theodore is now seeing a machine by the name of Samantha. And based on the flashbacks, you can see that both of them had such a great relationship. But I don't really know why they ended up being divorced. That's probably one area that I didn't really get. What made these two feel so compelled to end up divorcing each other? Did they get into a fight? Did Theodore end up going on a drinking bin or something and took it too far? We never know because it's never really implied, only except that they're going to be divorced and, well, Theodore pretty much has to search for his own life and Catherine pretty much has to search for her own life as well. So yes, even though not a lot of Catherine is completely fleshed out in terms of her relationship with Theodore, though in terms of their divorce, she's definitely a really great character because she's a person who suffers and a person who feels that her life just doesn't really feel that great and just needs a little bit more. And then we have Amy. She is definitely such a devil-may-care and such a fun-loving character. Her signature catchphrase is, "Fuck it." Well, I guess it's because, she's experienced the pains of love. She's had an ex-boyfriend, and sure, even though she tries to fight it, it's still there. The pain pretty much is still there. So she tries to simply fight it by saying, fuck it. It's the past. There's nothing that she can do about it. But we see her pain. We see that she needs someone that she can really talk to, that she can relate to, that she can care for. And it almost feels quite obvious from the start that even though Theodore has Samantha, you kind of would really tell that Amy and Theodore are pretty much meant to be together. And I really love their chemistry. It makes me feel that they're more than just best friends, but there could be something a lot more with them. And that's what I really love about Amy. And then we have this girl that Theodore went out with. Well, one of his first tries, and her name was, let me check. Amelia. Now, Amelia, she doesn't really have that much to her character, though it's safe to say that she doesn't want to be looked at as just another woman who is just beautiful, but she's very smart, and she knows that she has to be committed. The same thing that can be said about men. She knows that man and woman have to be committed to each other. And she was basically confused with how Theodore was reacting. I mean, sure, she doesn't have that much to do, but it kind of shows that yes, she's definitely serious about a relationship, but she can't really see why Theodore is so messed up as a person. So yes, the characters are very down to earth. They're very relatable. And sure, they're very flawed people, like the people in Welcome to the NHK. But there's always something about them that I really, really admire. Now, the acting is very stellar all around. Joaquin Phoenix does a magnificent job portraying all of the pains that Theodore has. And I basically known Joaquin Phoenix as the charming dude, the gentleman who was just so charming, who was like a Prince Charming, a ladies' man. I basically knew him as a ladies' man. Heck, he was even in the biographical drama Walk the Line, where he played Johnny Cash. And here I was almost quite surprised to see that it was actually him. He almost looked so unrecognizable. He looked older, so to say, and not like his previous incarnations where he would usually be the ladies' man. He looked a lot more different. He was almost unrecognizable, but the way he was able to pull off Theodore's nuances was just so endearing and so much of a breath of fresh air for me. And then we have Scarlett Johansson as Samantha. I thought she was able to do such a fantastic job lending her voice to such a fun and very, very lovable character. Especially when she sings. Her voice kind of reminds me of Mamiko Noto's singing voice, with that soft and almost mysterious quality. Only except Johansson's is a lot more husky and a little bit more smoky than that of Noto-chan's voice. I have to say, she does a magnificent job. Amy Adams, who I saw as in American Hustle, was just so endearing in the role of Amy. I really, really love every moment she was on screen, and I was just wowed by her performance. And then we have Olivia Wilde. Sure, she didn't have that much to do, but she did a pretty solid job in such a very minute role. But my other favorite characters in this film definitely have to be the alien child, voiced by Spike Jonze. I was just astonished by his performance. More than astonished, but I really loved his performance. He was just hilarious all around, especially every line delivery. And speaking about the alien child, it makes me feel that he could pretty much have his own show. I mean, he's pretty much like someone that you'd expect to see in a Seth MacFarlane TV show that's animated by DreamWorks. That's just how much I really love Jones's performance as the alien child. He was definitely funny, yeah. Even though the alien child is not always on screen, every line delivery that he makes and every um, rambunctious little antic that he has is just hilarious to watch all around. And Jones did a magnificent job portraying such a hilarious character. And then we have Chris Pratt as Paul. He didn't really have that much to do, but he was pretty great at what he did. And actually, everybody did fantastically in this movie. There was not one performance that felt wooden or over the top. Everybody was absolutely natural, and the music has this hushed and very nuanced tone to it, as if though that I was watching some indie film. And I definitely felt so drawn in because of the music. It was just that beautiful to listen to. So overall, this film is in every sense of the word flawless. Everything about it is just so down to earth. And it's absolutely no wonder why this has gained some awards like Best in Original Screenplay from the Academy Awards, and it's gained some awards from the American Critics Awards or something like that. But it's no wonder why this film has been praised by a lot of critics. It is down to earth, it's so heartfelt, And it is just so genuine. It doesn't feel like it's manipulating your emotions, but it's just so genuine. Nothing feels forced. In fact, I am going to give this film a 5 out of 5 stars. It is that recommendable to watch. If you haven't seen this film yet, go ahead and watch it. For those of you who've seen Chobits, Welcome to the NHK, Clannad, Air, and Koi Kaze, you'll definitely love this film too, because it'll pretty much remind you of those 5 animes that I've mentioned. In fact, they're pretty similar like I've mentioned before. So go ahead and watch it. And by the way, this is not really for kids as well, because it has a lot of sex in it. So you might as well put the children out unless they're quite curious. But this is mostly recommended to older kids and even those of adults. So yeah. But anyways, go check them out. You will not be disappointed. Now, on a more somber yet unrelated note, this review is dedicated to Mickey Rooney and Peach's Geldof. Both of them passed away. And for those of you who don't know Mickey Rooney, he was a very famous child actor from the 40s and the 50s. He co-starred in a lot of Judy Garland's films, and I basically had my first experience with Mr. Rooney when he voiced Mr. Cherrywood from the Care Bears movie. He did a pretty good job in that role. He's extremely memorable even until the day of his death, and he put on such magnificent performances, whether it's live action or voice acting. And all I have to say is, may you rest in peace, Mr. Rooney. Your legacy of great films and your flawless acting, singing, and dancing will never be forgotten. And the same thing can be said about Peaches Geldof. She was basically the daughter of Bob Geldof, who is a rock singer. May she rest in peace as well. So yes, we've lost 2 fantastic people, and I'm actually quite saddened that they have left us too soon. Well, Mr. Rooney passed away at the age of 93, but I'm sure that he's lived such a fruitful life. But all the same, may rest in peace, and may your legacy live on. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in to my next review, and be sure to tune in to my reviews of the various concerts and operas that I'll be seeing in England and Amsterdam. And basically, I'm extremely excited for these trips. Until then, this is Antoni signing off and wishing you all a good night.